You have been well trained, my young apprentice. They will be no match for you.
Yes, my master.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Chance Cube's deck analysis videos. This week, Nate here going over, honestly, a really weird deck that may or may not be good, but it breaks the mold at least, so let's dive into it. So let's go over the characters for this deck. I decided to go with eKylo Ren and eJango Fett for one big reason. You can get both of them at 2 dice in a single deck. I know that, yes, theoretically there are better builds, but I was trying to go for something thematic and just different because I felt like I was playing all the same decks. And honestly, I wanted to try something that was probably going to fail, but had the potential to be fun and different. And I'd been playing a lot with Kylo, and I really like his special ability. It's very, very strong. It messes with your opponents at times. They'll potentially discard expensive cards if you roll in the Kylo special, just so that they don't get hit by it. And then Jango's in there because, hey, free character activations makes the deck faster, and there's nothing better than a fast deck. As far as the characters' abilities themselves, Kylo is pretty good with melee damage, whereas Jango's more ranged, but he does have that one melee side, and since the deck is about melee, why not go with Jango and see what can happen? So the main reason I built this deck was specifically for 2 upgrade cards, Flamethrower and Gaffy Stick, which are going to be our key yellow melee damage abilities. They're both really, really good. The Flamethrower has a 2 melee side and a 4-for-1 melee side, so it can dish out some major, major damage quickly. Combined with its special, which has the ability to be really good against a lot of the 3 character decks. Meanwhile, Gaffy Stick is a little bit more on par with what we think of for a melee weapon. It has a 2-for-1 and a +2 modified melee side. But it's really its special that I have been finding to be very, very good in decks. I was running 1 Gaffy Stick in a Vader Raider deck, because there's times where you have a pay side on a dice and can't afford it, or you have a modifier side on a dice, or even just a 1 melee side, and you happen to roll in the special on the Gaffy Stick, or potentially have the Emperor's Throne Room out and are able to claim and use the special on the Gaffy Stick for a pretty substantial damage swing that your opponent might not be expecting. It also has redeploy, which is really good for this deck because they're probably going to take out Jango first. So if you can get some early Gaffy Sticks or Lightsabers is the other good redeploy card in this deck onto Jango quickly, it makes it less of a advantageous play for them to go after Jango, and potentially they've already spent resources in trying to do that. As I mentioned, the other big card for your just straight melee damage is the lightsaber. It's fantastic. It's been talked to death. Everybody's written about it. It's just a great, great card where if you're running blue, you're probably running lightsabers because of the power that they provide you. The other damage abilities in the deck come from Kylo Ren's lightsaber, which is another fantastic melee ability. The only downside is you can only put it on Kylo in this deck, so it's a little less good than if you were running mono blue or something that could utilize it more. You're also running Force Choke and Force Throw. The Force Choke is mainly for the control aspect, whereas the Force Throw is there not only for its damage, but also in damage mitigation. So they fit kind of a control role, even though they both have the ability to do damage, which is a good thing in this deck. And the last two upgrades that we're running are 2 copies of Hunker Down and 2 copies of Sith Holocron. We all know that shields are great. Melee damage seems to be on the light side right now, so not a whole lot of people are using it. So technically Hunker Down has the chance to stay around. The other card in there is the Sith Holocron, which lets you cheat your force throws and your force chokes onto eJango if need be. It also isn't a bad idea to just throw them on him for extra dice that you can roll. It has a focus side, and it also has a modified resource side, so there's a lot of extra dice that you can be throwing into this on eJango early, which is always a good thing. Potentially, you could take out eKylo's lightsaber for something like a mind probe, so that you had another way to get something with a holocron onto eJango or Kylo. Seeing as how the lightsaber is only valuable for one of your characters, that's an option. I was just, when I was throwing the deck together, I really wanted to just focus on heavy melee damage right out the gate. So we're also running 2 support cards in the deck. We're running 2 copies of Backup Muscle, which there's not a whole lot of surprise there. If you're running yellow, there's a very, very strong possibility that you're running Backup Muscle. It's a fantastic way to get around shields, to pump in that last point of damage, or even just to stall out so that you don't have to activate a character and still progress towards your win condition of dealing that damage. So, no surprise that we're running them, but they're there, and they're there for a really good reason. So let's get into the event cards for this deck. Mainly I focused the event cards when I was building the deck around control aspects. Most of our damage is going to be coming from our upgrades, so I felt like using the event cards as protection was viable. So there's 2 copies of Use the Force, 2 copies of Isolation, and 2 copies of Feel Your Anger. All 3 of these cards either can remove dice completely or turn dice to a side that isn't lethal to you. Also, Use the Force is good because it can turn one of your dice to a side if you need it to. So let's say you need to do that last bit of damage. It works both ways, which when I'm looking at event cards personally and I see one that allows me to use it offensively or defensively, that ups its value in my opinion. Isolation is fantastic. Being able to just remove a character dice can prevent a ton of damage, can prevent a character like Akbar from getting 2 focus out, can prevent Qui-Gon from getting shields. Since it's not requiring the dice to be on a specific side and is just removing a character dice, it's a great way to just eliminate specific dice that your opponent has. As far as Feel Your Anger goes, it can be a little situational since it's requiring your opponent to have blank dice out. The good thing is against a deck such as Politic, Trooper, eJango, a lot of the dice that it's rolling have 1 to 2 blank sides on them, and so the odds that they have a blank out are really high. And since you can remove a number of dice equal to the blanks that they have, you potentially can remove all of their non-blank dice, or even if they're rolling terrible and have a ton of blanks, you can remove a lot of potential damage that's coming your way. So the payoff for the card outweighs the chance that it does nothing. The next 2 event cards that we're running are both yellow. That's He Doesn't Like You and Electroshock. He Doesn't Like You is great because it lets you remove one of your dice that potentially isn't doing anything to remove an opponent's dice. The one bad side is that it requires you to have dice in your pool. And at times, you just don't want to roll out a character, or you've used all your dice, and so He Doesn't Like You is kind of sitting in your hand dead. Thus, the reason for Electroshock and some of the other blue event cards that are spot removal, where you can play it without having to necessarily have a condition to meet other than an alive yellow or blue character. So being able to remove a dice with Electroshock showing 2 or lower is a great ability. It lets you get rid of specials and a lot of different things that can just go completely and horribly wrong against you. Finally, we're running a single copy of Dodge and a single copy of Deflect. Those 2 cards are more of a local environment call. If you're playing against a lot of ranged heavy decks, Dodge and Deflect are really good against those. If you're not and you're playing more melee heavy decks, potentially some of the other melee hitting cards, or if you feel like you need to get some extra damage output in there, you could use something like Force Strike, Arm to the Teeth. There's quite a few different options for those last 2 slots in the deck. There's nothing concrete. It's more just whatever fits A, your playstyle, and B, the current meta that you're playing in. So lastly, let's go over the battlefield for the deck. I am personally running Emperor's Throne Room with the deck, mainly because all of your upgrade dice, other than the Hunker Down, have specials on them, and they have specials that are actually pretty good. Especially if, let's say, you remove the Kylo Ren's lightsabers for some Mind Probes, that gives you even more damage potential. Some other options that you could do instead of that, in case you're playing in a meta that has a lot of Poe decks and you don't want to give them the option of being able to take your Battleground and gain 2 shields, you could potentially go with Rebel War Room. You have quite a few dice that have cost associated with them. You have the flamethrowers 4 for 1, the gaffy sticks 2 for 1, the lightsabers, and so forth. So that's another solid option. If you wanted to, you could also go with something like the Imperial Armory to get your upgrades out for cheaper, but I think you kind of want to stick with something that's going to fuel your damage output for this deck. Thus why I chose to go with Emperor's Throne Room for my deck. And that's it for the deck this week, guys. I kind of went a little crazy making it and tried to do something that wasn't what everybody is used to seeing. Tried to go with a little creativity, and it probably is going to end up terrible and not do much, but there might be something there that sparks somebody else's interest. So I would really love to hear comments and feedback. Maybe some other people have been playing something similar, using Django to fuel some melee damage. I know that Gaffy Stick and Flamethrower have been cards that I really wanted to play with, but they kind of lack something right now. So please leave a comment and discuss the deck if you guys have had any experience with it. And that concludes another one of the Chance Cubes gameplay videos. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoy the Chance Cubes videos and you want to get more from us, please visit us at thechancecube.com. You can also join us and like us on Facebook at The Chance Cube, or you can follow us on Twitter at The Chance Cube. Till next time, everybody, may the Force be with you.